Welcome to the video notes for lesson 5-4. This is about solving systems using elimination, day 1. So just from the title of this lesson you can tell there's going to be more coming. This is just the introduction to, I'll read the learning target. I can solve systems by adding or subtracting. So these notes begin on page 17 in your notes packet, and we're going to be working on 17, 18, and 19. There's actually some blank space here, and I'm going to talk to you about what we're going to write some important stuff on page 17. So we need to focus on standard form for this lesson. If you have a system that is in slope-intercept form, or y equals mx plus b, we have a strategy for solving systems in that situation. But if we have an equation that is in standard form, where a, b, and c are all real numbers and a and b are not both 0, one of them could be 0 but not both of them, then we have to have a different strategy. So what we're talking about is if there's a number that looks like, or excuse me, an equation that looks like this: 2x plus 3y equals 10. And then if we had another equation that was negative x plus 5y equals 7. This is not a real system. I don't even know if it would work out, but when they're in this form, we can't just use substitution. Now you could if you did a little bit of algebra, but we have another strategy that works and makes this real easy. So I'm going to slide this up a little bit. We need the rest of this space. I want you to write this down. First, you're going to split your workspace in half. And you're going to write adding over here. And over here, you're going to write subtracting. Now, basically, when we use these strategies for solving the system, there's going to be multiple steps. For adding, there's going to be 4 steps. So the first step is to add to find one of the variables. Second step is to use your answer to find the other variable. And then step 3 is going to be to do the check. And step 4, state your solution. Now, when we do subtraction, basically it's the same 4 steps. But there's a step 1 that's different. So for subtracting, there's going to be 5 steps. Each of these becomes bumped up because we have a different first step. And that different first step is to multiply or distribute a negative 1. Okay, so I bet you're very curious now to see what this is all about. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first example we're going to work out, which is on the next page. So we're looking at page 18. The directions there at the top. You can solve linear systems using an algebraic method called the addition method. In the addition method, you solve a system by adding the equations to eliminate one of the variables. So once you eliminate one of the variables, you can solve and find an answer, and then use that answer to figure out the other variable. So let me show you. I'll walk you through. So remember, this is addition. So how about this? At the top of your paper, write down 4 steps. Or next to this, 4 steps. Alright, so step 1 is we are going to add these together. And the reason I can add them is if you look and you notice you have a negative 6x and a positive 6x. And when you add them, those zero out. 5y plus 4y is 9y. And 1 plus negative 10, or 1 minus 10, is negative 9. So now that I've gotten rid of x, I can solve for y. So divide both sides by 9, and you get y is equal to negative 1. So there's step 1. Step 2, now that we know what y is, we can use it to find x. So I'm going to use my ESS strategy. I'll use the first equation for this, negative 6x plus 5y equals 1. I'm going to substitute my negative 1 in for y. Negative 6x plus 5 times negative 1 equals 1. And then I'm going to figure out what x is. So negative 6x, so I have plus negative 5 equals 1. Well, adding a negative is the same as subtraction. So I'm subtracting 5. So to do the inverse operation, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And I get negative 6x equals 1 plus 5 is 6. Divide both sides by negative 6. And you get x is equal to negative 1. Alright, so now I have an answer for both variables. So step 3, I'm going to do the check. Now when I do the check, I'm going to do this with the other equation, the one I have not used yet. So I didn't use the second equation. That's 6x plus 4y equals negative 10. I'm going to substitute negative 1 in for x. Make sure you don't, this case it doesn't matter because both answers, x and y, are negative 1. But you got to be careful and make sure that you're putting the right number in for the correct variable. So 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Negative 6 plus negative 4 is negative 10. So you get negative 10 equals negative 10. And that is true, so this checks. So the last step, step 4, state your solution. I want you to get in the habit of writing this down. The solution is negative 1, negative 1. If you want to do a solution and then draw an arrow and then write it, that's fine. The important part here is to make sure you state your answer as a point. If you did not do this last step, then you may not get full credit for answering a problem like this. So make sure you do all the steps, but especially the last one where you write down what your solution is. Alright, there's another problem on this page. I am not going to work this one out. I'm going to let you try it. And for everybody that has a correct answer, about every 2 people that have a correct answer, I'll give you a point on your scoreboard. Alright? So let's go ahead and take a look at page 19 so we can do the other strategy, or the other situation, which is the subtraction method. And remember, this is going to be 5 steps. Alright, so when I look at these, the first example, 4x plus 8y equals 20, and 4x minus 2y equals 30. If I were to add them the way that they are, I won't be getting rid of any of the variables. But I notice I have 4x and 4x. If one of these was negative, I would be able to get rid of it. So I can make it negative by multiplying by -1. That's why this is called the subtraction method, because essentially we're creating a situation that works out for us. So I distribute the -1, and I get -4x. -1 times -2y, or minus 2y, is plus 2y. And -1 times 30 is -30. All right, so now, so that was step 1. Oops. Now, you are going to add these, which is really doing subtraction, because 4x plus -4x is like 4x minus 4x. And that eliminates the variable x. We've got 8y plus 2y, that's 10y. So now I'm doing step 2. And 20 minus 30, or 20 plus -30, is -10. So divide both sides by 10. I get y is equal to -1. There's one of my variables. Step 3, find the other variable using the answer from the first one. So I'll use the first equation. Let me clean this up a little bit. I want to make sure I can see. So my first equation was 4x plus 8y equals 20. I'm going to substitute my -1 in for y, so then I can find what x is. -1. So 8 times, oops, getting ahead of myself here. 8 times -1 is -8. When I add -8, that's really like subtracting. So to undo that, or the inverse operation, is to add 8 to both sides. I keep getting ahead of myself. That's supposed to be 20, sorry. But then when I add 8 to 20, I get 4x equals 28. Now I have 28. Divide by 4, and dun dun dun, x equals 7. So that was step 3. Step 4, yes, you need to do a check. I forget if I had mentioned this on the previous one. When you do the check, use the equation you didn't use the first time. And now I'm not going to use the equation that I multiplied by -1. I'm going to, I'm not going to use the new equation. I'm going to use the original one, which was 4x minus 2y equals 30. That's the one you need to use. Now substitute your x and y in. Again, make sure you don't get these mixed up. X was 7, y was -1. So -2 times -1 is +2, so 28 plus 2 equals 30, and that is true, 30 equals 30. So this checks, so that means I know my solution is correct, so state your solution, which is x is 7, y is -1. It's really important that you don't get these two numbers switched around. That's probably the biggest mistake students make. The adding and subtracting and solving and all that, pretty easy stuff, makes a lot of sense, works out really nice. But where students have trouble is writing their answer correctly. Okay, again, there is another example here. For every 2 people that solve it correctly, I'll give you points on your scoreboard. So you have potential to earn lots of points for doing the extra practice on your own. If you had trouble, go back and rewatch the video or come see me for help. Good luck, and we'll see you in math.